Hello, my crafty friends. It's that time of month for What Would You Make? Our hosts are Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIY, Christine with Divine Design, and their guest host is Katie from Lady Red Crafting. I will link their channels in the description below. Welcome to our first craft. We have some wooden clothespins, actually from Walmart, and I'm going to use 9 of them here. I only need to take apart, well, I need to take apart all 9 of them, and these were tough. These were a little stuck together, but I only need one of those glued back together, back to back, and all the others are going to be left as half pieces. I'm going to take and support my bottom wing, and you can see that there, and then I'm going to make sure on the opposite side I do the same. And right there I can see that it's up a little bit high on that other side, and I didn't catch it. And you'll see what happens at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and I did the top of the bottom wing and the bottom of the top wing. So now I'm just going to come in and I'm going to make sure I put the tops of the wing on top, and I'm going to make sure those are both the same on each side, and I'm going to hot glue them in there. Now I should have used wood glue, but for video purposes I went ahead and used the hot glue because it will grab much quicker than the wood glue. Even though some wood glue dries pretty quick, I went ahead and just used the hot glue because this was a lot of pieces. If you're going to give this away or sell it, then I would definitely use the wood glue. Take your time and put it together. Here I'm making sure that each piece of the next clothespin, I'm putting them in upside down, and I'm making sure that each of them are lined up on their significant clothespin the same way. So that way they're going to be even. The tops and the bottoms are going to be even with each other on the right and left side. I want to make sure that this wing is nice and full. So the top wing is going to get, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And the bottom wing is going to get 1, 2, 3.5. So I just wanted to make sure we had all of those in there nice and, well, they're not straight. They're not supposed to be straight, but making sure that they are lined up on, I'm using the little grooves in the clothespins to make sure that they're right where they need to be. Now, once again, guys, this is our What Would You Make collaboration, and all of our projects need to be made out of wood. And so I went ahead and used clothespins on this one. I had a couple different ideas, but I did not get to what I wanted to make. Here's why I'm adding that half clothespin on the top. You can see that there. But I went ahead and just dug out some of my supplies that I've had. And I had gotten those clothespins obviously at Walmart because I got more per pack for the price than I would at Dollar Tree. I took my Rust-Oleum flat black and took my butterfly outside to give it a spray. And you can see I added that extra half clothespin at the bottom of those bottom wings, and I had them turned out because it just looked like it was off just a little bit. So I wanted to add another clothespin down there. I am using Ocean Blue by Waverly Chalk Paint in my Waverly Chalk Paint, and I'm using white, and then I'm going to come back in. Now, because it's on black, that Ocean Blue does not look bright at all. But once you add that white in there, it helps to kind of give you a gradient color. I hope that's the right word. My husband tells me I make up my own words all the time, so maybe this is my own one. I know gradient is a word. I just don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be saying. I am taking some 18 gauge para wire that I use when I make jewelry, and I am going to use my Quick and Thick to add that onto the head of my butterfly. Now that's going to take a few minutes to dry right there, and I just didn't want to use hot glue with the metal and the wood. Now it would have been fine on the wood, just not on the metal. So I laid my cutters under there and just laid it on so it would dry. I'm using my Fabri-Tac and putting a little dab on the tip of each one of those little wing pieces and the Dollar Tree bling. Look at that. I think that turned out cute. I mean, it's not necessarily my style, but it turned out cute. Tell me what you guys think in the description box below. And let's move on. All right, my lovelies, I have these wood cutouts from Dollar Tree, several packets, so I have those. I have this jute ribbon net, and I have some white sand. I have my Waverly chalk paint in ocean, ink, and white, and I'm going to use those three colors on top of my wood pieces. First thing I'm going to do is spritz my wood pieces down to give a nice coat over the top, and this actually helps so the paint doesn't take as much paint to actually absorb into the wood. That water has started that process, and so it gives me a lighter coat on top of my wood pieces. Once I get all of those painted, I am now going to go in and start my process with the three colors of Waverly chalk paint that I have chosen. So I'm going to start with the ocean blue, and I'm going to kind of go right in the center of my wood piece here. And I'm just going to do a straight line right on down the center of that wood piece. I'm going to do this on all of my pieces, and then I will come back with a little bit of a mixture on the next ones. You can see this process. It's really pretty simple. You just drag your brush straight on down, and with the different holes in that's perfectly fine. So the next thing I did is I took that ocean and I mixed it with some ink, and that way it was darker and it kind of blended out that blue more into a really dark gray. It's not quite black, but it's almost black. And I'm going to go and drag that same line on down on each of my items here. My starfish, my whale, all of those items. I'm going to come right back in and add some more white to that. And now we're coming up with a little bit of a blue-gray. And so once I do that, I'm going to continue on down each of my pieces here with a little bit more. Now, as I'm mixing this, these colors, I won't be able to mix again because I'm just doing it, on the go here. And so you want to make sure you have enough done up that you can paint each of your items. Once again, I added a little more white to that, and look at that really pretty light blue-gray there. And then I'm going to go start the other side where I'm taking the white and adding it into that ocean. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw up the lines on the other side, the opposite side there, and start getting my colors blended out the other direction. Once I get those on there, I'm going to go ahead and add some more white. And each time we add some more white, we're going to get a lighter and lighter blue. And then all the way up until it's almost white. And we get all of those done. Once we got all of those done, I came in and I spritzed them again with some water, and I came in with my antique wax. And once again, because of that water, it's going to dilute it and I don't have to worry too much about it. I went ahead and had a damp paper towel there, and I just wiped it back with my damp paper towel. Made sure those edges had a nice cover, and look at how pretty that is. Once again, spritz it with the water, and then come in with a little bit of that antique wax, and look at the difference there. Oh my word, I think it's beautiful. I'm going to do the same thing with these clothespins. Now, I'm just really just mixing the colors and putting them on. They're kind of like mixed media, just splash, splash, splash. Whatever happens, happens. And then I'm going to add the white and the antique wax, and I'm going to wipe it back. And then I've got my clothespins almost ready. I am going to come in after doing both sides of this with the antique wax, and I'm going to lift up that edge of those clothespins, and we are going to go ahead and spray the inside of those clips and just add some antique wax in there, buff them out as best we can, and let them dry. Now this is the hanging shelf from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to do the same thing by spritzing it with my water, and then I'm going to come in with my damp paper towel and some antique wax, and I'm just going to rub that on there and buff it on out. I'm going to make sure it has a coat all over that, and it was a dry piece of wood. Can you tell? Even with spritzing that water, I needed to add some more, and then I was able to get it all on there. Now I did want this to be darker around the edges, so I did make sure it was covered on the edges. But then I just wanted the middle of that board to be a little lighter. So I sprayed it down and I wiped some white paint on that. What a difference that made. Isn't it beautiful? My white sand. Now I've got my Quick and Thick and my white sand, and I'm just going to go over in places here, just not making any sense, just all over the place. And once I get that all rubbed on there with my rubber gloves, I'm going to come in with that white sand that I had gotten from Dollar Tree, and we're just going to pour some down over the top of this sign before that tacky glue, that Quick and Thick, dries. And this is going to hold this sand on there very nice, and we don't have to worry about it falling off. And so once I get that on, I'm actually going to move on to my embellishments here. So I've got my little wood pieces, and I'm just adding a little bit of that Titebond in certain areas and then dipping it in that white sand. Once I got those done, I came into my clothespins and just put some across the front, dabbed with my finger, and then there goes the sand right over the top of that. Now I wanted to press that one down a little bit more. Now I'm coming in with some of my thinner jute twine, and I've got some little different seashells there. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to wrap jute twine across the top of all of my little clothespins here. I'm just going to come in with some Titebond Quick and Thick. I'm going to put that on there and just wrap that twine all around there and then snip it off. Once that's done, I'm going to move on to the next one because that Titebond does grab pretty quick, and so we don't have to worry about that. We'll set that down and move on to the next one. I interrupt this regularly broadcast program to share a video with you. We are currently dog sitting for our daughter, and they have two Goldens, and I was trying to do my voiceover back in their bedroom, and I just got visitors here, and they just were all over me. Now, it's like I haven't had puppies since my little Jazzy died a year ago, and of course everybody can use some puppy kisses. Now back to our regular schedule program. So once I had that all over my embellishments and my clothespins, I came back in with my Titebond, and then I put a little dab of hot glue on the bottom of those clothespins and the Titebond on the top. And I'm just going to pick some of my smaller little seashells there and put on the tips of those clothespins. I'm going to come in and do the same type of thing with my larger embellishments, and that one had actually a hole in the bottom of it so you could actually string it like a bead. And so I went ahead and just put some of the smaller shells around the bottom of it, and I did this to all of my pieces here. Once I got that done, I pulled out that twine ribbon, and I decided I wanted it to wrap kind of around the corners there, because I wanted to hang off of this piece of wood, but it, because it's a ribbon, it's kind of, it's like, how am I going to do this? It's not really a net. So I played with it a little bit, and I added some hot glue across that board where I wanted those pieces to overlap, brought it around the back, hot glued them down, and then this last piece, because I had 3 pieces I cut out, is I put a little bit of hot glue across the bottom, and I went ahead and stuck that down to the back side of the wooden shelf piece. And now I'm just going to place the embellishments on here, see how I want them, and then my camera died. Now, I hadn't thought about putting letters on these at first, but that open sign at the top just looked like it needed something. So I went up and got my little wooden letters from Dollar Tree, and I'm painting them with the same colors, a little blended. I want it to match, but not be, overly matchy-matchy, because this is definitely a, your ocean waves and stuff are all different colors due to the sunlight and the crashing, just beautiful. So I'm just going to come in, and I did the blue at the top, and then I went ahead and grounded the bottom with the black and came in with the white to actually blend it out. Now I'm using my Titebond to go ahead and add it to this sign, and it's going to say Beach Life. And we now can take a look at what this sign looks like. But you're gonna have to wait till the end of the video to see the final reveal. I think it turned out super cute. Hope you like it. Guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to visit with me as I craft. And I want to thank our hosts, Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIY, Christine with Divine Design, and Katie with Lady Red Crafting. I will have links to their channel in the description box below, as well as a link to the playlist for all the wonderful crafters in this collaboration. So here I have some Sola wood rolls so I could make my own wood flowers. So I took and I cut up pieces in the size of petals, curved the edges, and just angled it down a little bit to make a rose. So the first thing I did is I sprayed my petals with some water. And this wood is just, the texture is so odd. It's almost like doing those foam roses. So if you've ever done those, you can do the Sola wood. But what I do is I come in, I spritz it, and then I push it with my thumbs. This is not necessarily the way that they do it with the companies, but this is the way I've always made my roses. And so I just decided to go ahead and continue on. So for those center pieces right there, what I did is I took that first one, that first little piece, and rolled it into a little tube. And then I took a second rose petal, and then I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac, and I'm going to put it right along that bottom there. I'm sorry it's out of frame. It's just a little bit of glue. And then I'm going to lay it right, I'm going to lay the first roll right on top of that second petal, making sure that my top edges are lined up. And then I'm just going to come in, pinch the bottom, and roll those edges out just a little bit. And there you have two center rolled pieces. I'm going to come in with another petal. Now it'd probably be better to do 5 or 6 of these. I did have a couple more, but they did tear on me. So you need to be very careful with this wood, but it does work very well. And I'm going to continue on with my flowers. And you can see as they dry in the form that they were left. And so once they're dry, these flowers aren't going to move much. Now I did, when you color them, you want to add a little bit of glycerin to it, and that'll make your roses a bit more soft. But when these dry, they're going to dry just like the Sola wood flowers. So it'll be really nice. And as I pinch the edges, it makes it thinner, and so it'll have a little more texture in those particular areas that are thinner. So I'm just going to continue and build up my rose centerpieces. So here I have 2 rose centerpieces, and I'm going to pinch and make sure that those are going to stay nicely together. And I continue to mess with these as I push them and pull the little petals one direction or another. Now I'm coming into my bigger petals. Now those other ones were the smaller petals for the center, and now I'm going to come in and I'm going to find the next size up. And you see I did the same process where I pinched and flattened out, stretched out the top of that petal, and then I squeezed the bottom of that petal, and it gave it more of a petal shape. Now you can dye these prior to putting them together, or you can dye them afterwards. These I'm going to dye, actually I'm going to leave these plain. I did dye one, and you will see that at the end, but I went ahead and just put that Fabri-Tac glue on there. I took a centerpiece, and then I'm going to come in and start layering this on the centerpiece of one of my roses. And the trick is keeping those tops as even as you can. And that way you've got a nice built rose as you go around here. Now I take the next petal and I layer it, and then I pull it around. And I take the next petal, lay it on that last one on the top of it, and pull it around. So every time you add a new petal, they're going to overlap the back one and be on top of the one that is in front of it, if that makes sense. You can just watch here as I do it, and it's just overlapping those petals so that you have a nice buildup as you're putting those on the rose. So covering one side, making sure it's matched up on the top, and then pulling that around. There you go. Pulling that around, and then layering the next one and pulling that around, and then you're going to add your another petal and so forth. And I did 2 roses using this technique as I go all the way around it and build this up. Now, even though I used the glue on it, I want to make sure that that bottom piece is nice and tied in together, and it'll actually give that shape of the rose a little bit more, it'll give it more of that rose shape. How about that? Now all you do is set them aside and let them dry. And look at how beautiful those turned out. There's the one rose, and there's another, and the burgundy back there is the one I actually went ahead and dyed before I put it together. Here's the butterfly that got finished. It's all done, and you can see the gems. It's not quite my style, but I think it turned out adorable. Be great for maybe a little girl's room. You can use any type of color in there. And then our beach themed. Oh my gosh, look at this beach life. And all our little animals hanging off of there. Those clothespins hanging off of there. You can use those as bag clips if you need to, or notes, whatever you need a clip for. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending time with me. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. Please like, comment, and share. And if you want to know when I'm uploading a new video, hit that bell notification. YouTube should notify you when my next video has gone live. As always, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.